What's going on, everybody? I'm Major Rambo Jr. and welcome to Rambunctious Episode 4. Today we got a very specific topic, but we're gonna um, expound upon it. First, I'd like to thank everybody here in the channel, for watching the video. Be sure to like and sub if you haven't already. And at the end of the video, I ask you guys to comment below what you guys think. This topic that we're going to be talking about is in reference to, I guess, over the last 5 or 6 years, it's been very popularized for OnlyFans models, male and female, mainly female for the most part, to, I guess, uh, take advantage of their youth and exchange their youth for a monetary gain. And that's a very generalized way of saying selling your soul in a way. And this is how us as Christians see it. And it's not just them. There's other methods that people do, things like that. They exchange their morals, they exchange what used to be universally sound morals to modern day conformatism, if that's a word. But you guys get what I'm trying to say. um and everyone's trying to be like, don't be judging, and I also want to illustrate that judgment versus opinion are two very different things. And for me, when I look at somebody, who's stating their opinion on a topic, I don't ever correlate that with judgment. The reason for that is judgment, to me, and maybe, for you as well, judgment implies you have the authority to impose your opinion or impose your view on somebody else, which I don't ever see that unless you're a, I guess, licensed certified judge or whatever, that you can impose a sentence on somebody. You can say, this is what I think, this is what you should be punished for, and this is how long you should be punished. There's people that play judges. That you'll see it on social media. They try to cancel culture you and all that stuff. That doesn't. It's not real. Like, people, it's like the value of money. People gave it value, right? It used to be a symbol of something, and now it's just, our dollar, at least in the U.S., is based off of nothing. It used to be backed by gold and all that, but now not so much. So, anyways, that's a whole nother topic. But nowadays, morals have been exchanged for conformity, and everyone's trying to fit in and trying to do their own thing, without judgment, without this and that. It's just like, you gotta understand that there's only one judge, and that's God. There's if you decide to believe that God doesn't exist and that judgment doesn't exist, well, then you start seeing that there's people that don't really know what they're doing. They don't know the implications of their actions. And then, unfortunately, more often than not, those same people don't get to see the reward that there is waiting for you in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, where you look back on your youth and learn from it, and then live the rest of your life in peace, knowing that you're now on the right track, even though you've messed up your youth. That lesson propelled you into your future as long as you learn from it. But there's a lot of people that are going to be stuck, either by age or by mindset. They're stuck in that group of youth where you'll see 40-year-olds acting like they're 19, 25-year-olds, and it's like that. Act your age, act your maturity. You're almost half a century old, and you're still acting like you did when you were a teenager or, in your 20s, because, you fell in love with that worldly desire. The Bible says those who love the world do not have the love of God with them. And we love because He first loved us. So I don't want to make this a whole religious thing, but I'm referencing things in the Bible that have wisdom and relate to what I'm going to be talking about here. So Abba and Preach today they released a video. I have the link in the description below. Please click on it. Show them some love. I love them because there's videos that I agree with them 100%, and then some videos I'm like 50-50 with. But I love the fact that they're consistent, and although there's sometimes I feel like, they may take on an opinion for maybe, I don't want to say the clicks, but it's like there's sometimes where they say this in one video and then there's another video where they take on a whole different view. But I think if I were to rate all their videos at a 98% of consistency, I think that that's a pretty decent, because like we all change and they've been doing videos forever. So their views and opinions change based on their, their maturity, and over time, they develop more of a sophisticated opinion on a topic, so they might change a little bit, but they really are consistent throughout, almost all of their videos that I've seen. And I this topic for me hit home because there's a lot of people that I know that, and that maybe not personally, but know of, that have done what this lady is going to be illustrating here in the video. But I want to just clarify judgment and opinion, like I did earlier. The other thing too is I want to also say that there's people that will go off of, facts versus emotions, and there's people who are, when they make a decision, they base it off of what's actually happening or what can happen versus what they think or how they feel. You should never base a decision on how you feel, unless, in my opinion, unless it's like, your gut instinct trying to keep you alive, and in some way where it's like a life and death situation and you don't have all the evidence or whatever, but you go off of your gut and what you know. But even even when you do that, a lot of times your gut's telling you things that you might not have perceived consciously, but subconsciously your brain made those factual discoveries before you could. And your brain sees things that you might not have really noticed that you saw. So a lot of times your instinct and your intuition come from that. So you saw something but you didn't notice. And then you're like, man, I got a feeling this guy's kind of weird, or this girl's kind of weird. It's because your brain saw something that you might not have recognized out the gate. But anyways, let's get right into the video. I'll show you guys clips and parts because I don't want to be, not that I'm a big streamer by any means, but I don't want to get in trouble with copyright and all that stuff. But I have links to the Abba Preach reaction to this Instagram post by an OnlyFans model who labels herself as a bop, which right here it gives you the definition: a person who has many sexual partners or who presents themselves online in a way that is thought of as immodest, such as posting pictures, videos revealing clothing, and etc. Normally it's sexual in nature, obviously. So these guys are basically reacting to what she's saying. So I'll play a little bit here, and I think this is
that's an old school term. I haven't heard that.
No, that's not a.
Yeah, I think this is them just talking about the definition. Well, let me see if I can fast forward here real quick to the actual video.
So bop in this context means OnlyFans. All right, let's keep watching.
You do not need to be a bop right when you turn 18. Try something else first, You have lots of other options. I tried hair school, music school, art school. I went to college for 4 years. Yes, indeed.
I already don't like the way she talks, but everyone has their own, I guess, cadence. For me, when I see or hear someone talk like this, it's very pretentious and it's very rehearsed. Either they talk about it, because there's people that they rehearse things like this because they record videos. So they probably have like 100 recordings to the one upload. So they have this rehearsed mindset that everything they do, once it goes live or once it goes out, it needs to be processed through all these different filters. So this facade that she has is not typical of somebody who's a normal, average You know, like if you were to see her on the street and she's just walking, and then you go say hello and try to start a conversation out the gate, like it's not scripted, so you'll see the real her. But this is all like, I don't want to say scripted, but it's filtered, because I guarantee you this isn't like she clicked, go, and then all of a sudden she uploaded it, right? Or she recorded herself like out the gate and then send it. I guarantee you she rehearsed this.
Try something else first, because once you're a Bob, you probably won't have the chance to try everything that you wanted to try.
Except all the.
Okay, I'm not gonna. I paused it right before he said what he was gonna say. But so she's her thing is like, it's a warning to the young people, that like, before you decide to be immodest, or before you decide to have all these partners and make that money doing OnlyFans and whatever, you should try being a normal person first. You should try school, you should try all these different things, because and she's right, because once you do these immoral things, a lot of times these windows and these doors close on you. These opportunities for a career, for a normal life, they close, and people exchange a normal life, a moral life, with an immoral life that gives you a lot of worldly profits. And the thing is, the way that we Christians view that is like I said, if we love the world, the love of the Father is not with us, because we want that instant gratification. We want the in-face, like in your face, like, oh my God, you're so beautiful, or you're so handsome, or this and that. I want you, blah 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 blah. It's like they treat sexuality as a currency, and it feels good because we're of the flesh, So, things like that. It feels good to have someone call you sexy or give you all these different, I guess, worldly edifications. But what you rarely ever see is, you really I love his Preach's face is the best, dude. I love this guy. You rarely ever see somebody tell you, you know what, you're an amazing person, and I'm really happy you're in my life, without, right, wanting something in return. You rarely ever see that. There's people that look at me weird at work because I tell them, like, just so you know, man, I appreciate everything you've done for me in my career, because I expound upon the fact that even though their role in my career overall is small, I don't treat it that way. I treat it as if it's the most important thing, because only that person could have given me this piece for my career to be successful. So I try to give everybody that edification. But what she's basically saying is, it's a half-hearted warning. It's a rehearsed warning. And maybe this is to make herself feel better about what she's doing, where she's like, well, let me give, something good. Let me put something good out there, because I know that what I'm doing is not moral. So I'm going to put some morals in there to kind of, if it's like, I'm sorry, but you're putting sprinkles on a pile of shit. You're not making it any better. And Albert and Preach, they do a good job of expounding upon that right around this time marker, around 550, somewhere in there, where they're like, okay, well, her little half-hearted warning to people is not really doing anything, because I think he says it's like a drop of water in a huge tank of water. It's like, and they're right. It's like, we appreciate the warning, but there's people going to be doing whatever they want to do. So, let's see what they're talking about here. I forgot.
They just touch themselves.
Oh.
Touch and bring a baby.
And
okay.
Dudes pay millions, so it is what it is.
Live your life.
It is what it is.
I feel like Bobs need to stop pushing on younger people that this is a great job for you. It is a great job for me, but it may not be a great job for the people that you're trying to push it onto,
100%.
So that's the end of that video. The Instagram post. Like I said, it's a very half-hearted warning. But it does give you a perspective, especially, maybe it might touch the life of somebody who watched it and be like, you know what, she's right. But the thing is, like, for her to say, well, it's a great life for me, well, it's like, okay, well, that person's gonna be like, well, why can't it be a great life for me too? If it's a great life for you, why can't it? You know what I'm saying? So she still promoted it. I don't know. For me, that doesn't make any sense. But I want to fast forward to something here. I think, like, 5 minutes.
Lavish life, the food, the trips, the yachts. You want that too? But you're 18. What's going to be your access to do it? Crime or bop?
Or sports.
Or sports or entertainment. So,
And that's the instant gratification that I was talking about, where, you know, they want worldly desires and they want worldly pursuits, worldly, like, they want it now. And what he says a little later after this is incredibly true. Like, I'm a construction worker, and I made more my first year of construction than I did 2 years at Walmart. And then my second year, well, COVID hit the second year, so I lost money there because of hours and whatnot. So I had kind of the grind through the whole COVID era of working in construction. And the nice thing is I kept my job. You know, I still had, employment. I still had insurance and all that. And some people, unfortunately, did lose their jobs during that time, and others lost their lives too. And it was a really sad time. But the point is, like, during the whole era here, people started trying to make money online because they didn't want to go to a job anymore. And I think COVID kind of expounded upon this, because around that time is when, OnlyFans started becoming a thing. And it's, like I said, it's only been last 5-6 years, and that's around the time that COVID, hit us. And OnlyFans, I think, was around a little earlier than that, but it became popularized between then and now, where now it's like, oh my God, sign my autograph. You're an OnlyFans model, blah, blah, blah. It's like everybody wants to do that now. And there's a statistic. I don't remember where it is. I gotta find it. Where it shows a graphic of an OnlyFans model. See something. See if it's here.
Probably something else.
like, what did that person have more than I do?
There's an OnlyFans model that made more than the NBA, the top NBA guy, which for me was it hurt. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I can't find it on here. But basically, she made like $12 million more a year than he did, and the basketball player was Jason Tatum. I'm not gonna say who the OnlyFans model was, but Jason Tatum made $35 million, and this other OnlyFans model made like $42 million. So I did the math wrong there. It's only $7 million more, but still, that's $7 million more dollars than he made. And this model, what is she building? Jason Tatum, you should follow him because he has a lot of charitable organizations that he donates to. He's built a lot of things. He's helped his communities out. And yeah, he plays basketball and he gets paid that much money. But the thing is, like, he's making a lot of money for the NBA, for an organization. He's building a lot of things. And I guarantee you, that's not his only form of income. He's building businesses outside of this because he knows that after NBA is done, his body's going to be deteriorate. So he has other avenues of income. But the fact that this other person is not doing anything for the community except taking advantage of people's weaknesses and expounding upon that, be like, well, people are going to have these weaknesses anyway, so I might as well make money off it. That's what they do. It's disagreeable in my eyes, and I think that's the nicest way that I could put it. But that sucks, especially for me. I'm in construction, and for me to make 6 figures, I have to do a lot of work to get there. And I'm almost there financially, but it's taken me 7 years of being in the industry. And some people will be in the industry forever and not make that much money because they don't want to move ahead, or they're not interested in that that, I guess, extended responsibility. But for me to have to do all this work and then somebody makes that much money, 42 million in a year, basically selling yourself, like, it hurts. It hurts a lot of people. And like I said, when you chase worldly pursuits and you chase, like, you don't know what you're doing. And is this person ever going to be a grandma? Well, is she ever going to reproduce? You know, is she, not trying to make everyone sound like an animal, but are you going to have kids? You know, what do you know, are you just going to live, you know, selfishly within your means? And when I say within your means, I'm not talking about financially, just selfishly, like, you know, living within your comfort zone. Like, you're comfortable doing this, but you're not comfortable changing your life and being better. There's OnlyFans model that have done that, where they've changed your life around. The problem is that the damage is already done, you know, and you can't not, you can choose your actions, but you can't choose your consequences. And there's a lot of people that think they can choose their consequences. It doesn't work. But I want to start right around here, because he gets...
Again, these guys that wanted, no, let me just skip the 3 years of school, the 2 last years of school that I got to go work in constructions. They see some people that they know work in construction, the paycheck that they pull, or go work, trade work. Let me go to mechanical school. I learned that. And then if I go up north, I'm 18, 19. I'm 19 years old. I'm making 100 powwow a year. And back then, that was back then. Like, I'm talking about in the 90s. They're making 80. You're 18 years old. You're 80. No, stay in school. For what? You already proved to me that school was not good for me, and I could do this job. I could do this. I'm gonna go and do that, and then so it's really hard. You don't have the means to compete against that.
No.
It's always talking about, yeah, you have to have your house. You have to have this. That was back then. Now you always see that in social media. Oh, you know, lavish life, the food, the trips, the yachts. You want that too? But you're 18. What's gonna be your access to do it? Crime or bop?
Yep.
Or sports.
Or sports or entertainment. So
Right.
you know what? I understand these kids going there. I'm not saying yes, go in there, but I understand. The same way I'm not really for going for the army. I'm not a fan of that. But I understand. You tell to a kid, hey, I don't have money to go to college. They gonna pay my college. I just got to do 4 years. Sign me up.
Yeah, and for me, that's exactly what it comes down to. But like, you know, even in that case where it's, you know, you don't have the grades, you don't have the money to get into a good school, whatever, and you go into the army and they help pay for it. Even that, like, okay, a lot of people, they do go to the army for that, the benefits and all that stuff, and I get why he disagrees with it, but also understands. You know, this is why, like I said, this is why I like this channel, because they might not agree with what you do or whatever, but they understand, because they at least, you know, they get that everyone comes from different places, and they get that someone's decision is their own. You know, I think a lot of times, and this is what I agree with them on, is when people start imposing their opinions and their own, you know, experienced wisdom on other people, that's where they have the issue. You know, and I don't think Alvin Preach have ever done that on their channel. I've never seen it. But you know, they have a very good head on their shoulders, you know, to talk about this kind of stuff. And what I like more than anything is that I like the fact that they, you know, they see it from both sides. They'll say, I don't agree with it, but I understand. I like that, because at least that way, you know, you show a mutuality. Yeah. So I'm going to skip over to like that.
The situation is that just that we have to have a bigger conversation than don't do that. Okay,
so there,
but
he was talking about the fact that, and this is what I said earlier, that, you know, she had this half-hearted, I guess, a warning, and I agree with him on this too. It's like, she didn't do anything. I think this is where he talks about the whole drop of water.
Look at what everything else is just being shoved in my brain. Hence the reason why I really agree with what you were saying about, you know, the age limit on social media for certain people. That's part of that conversation too. So if we're having the first conversation about, oh, don't choose this over that, is because they're being fed certain things.
Yep.
Right.
Anyways, go ahead.
You know, and another part of it is that most of these OnlyFans creators don't really make much money. I think most of it's made by like the top 1 or 2%, right? And then the other 10% that actually make a livable salary.
Let's see here. Well, on average, OnlyFans creators make between $150 and $180 each month. This sums up to about $2,000 a year. However, this is just an average. Some people make way less, while others make way more. Plus, after taxes, the figure reduces even further. Yeah.
Calorie off of it. Don't hear about as much, but they still eating. And they have a small audience, but there's some downsides to it. But I think it's very difficult to tell someone with no skill set who looks attractive or feels like they can really make it happen, tell them not to do it if they're looking at their bills being paid and a lot of different things. Again, I understand where everyone else is coming from.
Yeah.
But if we're being honest with ourselves, these are just messages that we put out there that make us feel better about it. Because all the other...
This is exactly what I said. And exactly what Preach said. It's like, she just did this to make herself feel better. That's the only reason.
I think like OnlyFans is a bigger economy than sports.
So in other words, OnlyFans earns $1.7 billion more than the NBA. This difference is based in particular on the number of members of each association. On OnlyFans, there are 2.1 million more users than players in the NBA. Well, yeah.
Sports in general, in terms of like how much money athletes generate.
Remember when
That's the generate part. That's what I was saying earlier. Jason Tatum, yeah, he makes 35 million, but he generates a lot more money than that. Like, you know, we talk about the gender pay gap and all that stuff, and like between WNBA and the NBA, for example, the disparity is like how much money they bring in, and that's why Caitlin Clark is one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid women's athlete in the WNBA, because she brings in a lot of money. You know, her skill set, her overall character package that she, you know, that God gave her, like she just makes, you know, that much more money for the WNBA. So Jason Tatum, yeah, 35 million, but he brings in that, you know. So then for somebody like the OnlyFans models that make that much money, you know, or more a year, that's how much money they're bringing in to that organization or to their business. So their earnings are that much, and but like I said, it's how they're getting their earnings that I have a problem with. I don't care that you make a lot of money, but how you make money also reflects your character too. So, well, like I said, people trade their character and morals for the worldly desires. I mean, that's just it's a cash grab, but also if you look at it, instant gratification is a thing. Look at obesity in the US. You know, it's a lot more than people just not eating right. It's people eating too much. The instant gratification, not talking about your emotions, you know, and be like, no, don't tell people that because people think you're a pussy. You know, it's just like, even like the thing, it's like, what I've seen in my experiences, you know, speaking of instant gratification, is that men and women do different. Men typically, in terms of instant gratification, will go buy a gun, go buy fishing equipment, go buy a truck, go buy material things. Whereas women will eat. It's a weird thing. You know, men, food is gonna be there. Like they, you know, a lot of, like they're at work or whatever. A lot of times they're work function, you know, or they got, you know, food at home that the woman gets groceries or whatever. Like typically this is what's going on. Is like they will just go buy food because they work for their money, so they'll just go to a fast food restaurant and eat food. But they'll eat when they're hungry, right? Men typically are not emotional eaters, but we are emotional buyers. So we'll spend money on something that we want. Whereas women, yeah, they spend money on things that they want, but it won't be like an emotional purchase. It'll be like a more of a materialistic purchase where they just want this, but it has nothing to do with their emotions, but they'll eat their emotions. That's just typical. I'm not trying to, you know, I guess have a gender bias. I'm just saying typically from my experience, that's what happens. So, you know, when you look at, you know, when you look at that instant gratification of, well, I want this right now, but you don't know what you're selling of yourself to buy that thing that you want so badly, because you might want that right now, but what if you found out that later on, you know, like you regret it, you know. So sometimes what I do is like I'll give it 2 weeks, a little bit more than that, and just kind of go, all right, well, I might want like for example, there's times where I drove past this car that's on a lot that I'm like, man, that looks so nice, but I already have a new car and I'm, you know, paying it off. So it's like I don't need another car, right? I want that car though. I could trade mine in and get a new one, get whatever. But it's like, okay, if I do that, then what other burden am I doing? Like, you know, how much more debt am I getting myself into? You know, so there's an emotional debt and a moral debt that people have to pay down the road, and it's gonna suck for them. And I'm really sad about that because I care about everybody, but there's gonna be this this disparity between reality and your future, because you think your future is going to be this, but in reality it's not. You know, that person that's making 42 million a year on OnlyFans is like, I mean, it's like, okay, you're making that much, but how much are you losing? That's the scary part, especially as a Christian. When I see this, you know, when I see a person making that much money doing something that is immodest, you know, using a word that was quoted earlier, how much are you really losing yourself? How much of your soul have you actually sold, you know?
And there was something where the credit card said, "Oh, you know what? We don't want to approve of OnlyFans, so we're gonna get out of there." And that shit only lasted a week because they realized all the profits that they would lose. Yeah. They shut up real quick when they realized, oh, if we, no, so the charges and the fee, yeah, how about we just gonna, you know, bad pedo.
No, that was pretty much it. Look, I'm not mad at this girl for the message again. I don't think we going back. So that's my real honest opinion. And I don't know. Do you guys feel differently? Do you guys feel like it's something that we can fix or change drastically?
No.
Without, you know, with the fact that sex is so much part of every form of media, from movies to video games to all these things, do you really think that we can go back? And if so, I'd love to hear from you guys how.
So we'll end the video there. But it's incredibly true that that there's just this disconnect again between what used to be universal morals with the morals that there are now. I alluded to this biblical verse last time, or maybe not last time, it was a few episodes ago. Actually, it might have been the first episode when we talked about the Destroyer of Kingdoms. I remember my boy Senna commented on that first video and said he agreed with what I had said. But I want to specifically quote directly from the English Standard Version Bible, Proverbs 31. I always recommend people. I know that, you know, there's a lot of people that are subscribers to me that are not, you know, of the Christian faith. That's okay. I'm not here to change your mind. God doesn't need my help to do that. And if he does, he will ask me to do that. For me, what I'm here to do is just share what was shared with me. And, you know, I'm just a messenger. I don't consider myself a prophet. I don't ever really want that title, because for me, that title should be earned from the public. The public should call me that, you know, like it's, for example, you don't call yourself great, right? You let people say that. And for me, I don't ever want to call myself that, but I am a messenger, and humbled by life, because I've made a lot of mistakes to get to where I'm at today, and I'm still making mistakes every day, you know, in hopes that one day I won't have to make so many. But anyways, I want to read this entire chapter, and it's a very quick chapter. It's not very long at all. But the reason why I'm reading it is because I want you to see what the Bible says that a woman should be, in terms of, you know, one that wants to be profitable, one that wants to not have to worry about bills, one that doesn't, you know, worry about their friends, and they don't worry because they leave it all in God's hands, or at least they have the faith that good things come to those not just who wait, but who are patient, not only with their surroundings but with themselves. It's incredibly patient. There's an incredible patience that goes along with wisdom and knowledge, and then applying that so that you don't feel like you have to be the answer in everything. And I invite the women who watch this channel to listen on in very closely to this, because, and men as well, because men need to, like, we need to know what type of woman is going to bless our life, and then also how we should bless them, and how we should acknowledge them with respect and reverence, and not be very stereotypical masculine, in terms of the bad part of the masculinity. But anyways, so Proverbs 31, the words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. Noted that this entire chapter was inspired by his mom. And she says this to him: "What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb?" As dramatic as that sounds, like this is a very a deep calling from a mom to a son. They're like, please listen to me. I don't want you to get lost, right? Do not give your strength to women. No, it's women plural. I did mention that also in episode 1. She doesn't say woman, she says women. Your ways to those who destroy kingdoms or kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, or for rulers to take strong drink, which is another way for saying like liquor or beer. I know in some versions they say beer for that one. Lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. Give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and remember their misery no more. She's basically saying, listen, the people who are all messed up in life, let them do what they want to do, but you need to keep your way straight. Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy. And then the following verses 10 through 31 is going to be the description of maybe not the perfect woman, but a very respectable and a beautiful example of womanhood. An excellent wife who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax, and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night, and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself and with strength, and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. Basically, like, she's always working, but she's always working for other people and for herself, because she makes her arms strong and she dresses herself with strength. So she takes care of herself and the people around her. She puts her hand to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. So her husband is a successful person. So here's the thing: is like, you got a woman, that talks about, what a successful woman looks like. This is an example of a woman, right? But then it shows the example of the man. It's like, if he's known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land, that means that he did something with his life. He's not just some bum. living on your couch. You know, he's not some guy that's, you know, that you had a kid with, the baby daddy who's barely around. This is a guy who's done something with his life, right? You know, maybe he has messed up, but he has brought forth fruit for his wife and for his family, so that she can live in a kingdom and she takes care of that kingdom. But he created it to begin with. That means that there's a mutual respect, there's a mutuality between the man and the woman here in this situation. And you need to look at your life and be like, what am I providing? What do I provide? What worth am I to someone else? Not what worth they are to me. You can't do that. You have to look inward in order to find someone else that does the same. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing. Strength and dignity are her clothing. And she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household, and she does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. See that? This is what I was talking about, is the mutuality. The Bible doesn't tell a woman to be like, you need a slave after your husband. You need to do what he tells you to do. Okay, there are times where you have to be obedient to your husband, but also the Bible says you need to be obedient to your wife. This is in Corinthians. This is a mutuality, because God knew that there is an ego battle between these two sexes, because one came first and then the other, you know, came because that first wanted. So, you know, you have a man, Adam, and you have Eve. And Adam was actually the first one to sin, not Eve. You know, because Adam knew not to eat of the fruit. But when he found that she did, he's like, he chose her over God. And instead of trusting his love, instead of trusting God to make things right, he said, well, I don't want to be here alone, so I'm just going to die with you. You know, and so God knew he made us in pairs, and he knew that he didn't want to create division within the marriage. So he said, this is your role, and this is your role. If you guys do these roles together, okay, you guys are going to be blessed, right? And he's not saying that there's a condition, like you're going to be blessed by God regardless. However, the blessings in your life will not be produced, you know, within the world that you live in, within your life, because you're not doing these things that he's asking you to do, because he knows what's good for you. He created us, right? So he knows what you should be doing. So it's like, why not just be obedient to that, you know, and see where that gets you, right? So she opens her mouth with wisdom and teaching of kindness. Kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. So she don't just sit around. She's working, you know. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Men, learn to praise your wife. Wife, learn to praise your man. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. This is the man saying this to her. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. It's a beautiful thing, man. You know, and like I said, I read this because this is completely opposite of what's happening today. And people have forgotten the wisdom behind the teachings of the Bible and teachings of, you know, morals. You know, we've exchanged that for worldly desires or worldly pursuits, and we think that, you know, okay, you only live once. When YOLO came out and I was in high school, for me, what that told me was that people didn't really appreciate their life. They just were in despair because they're like, well, I only live once, so I might as well do whatever the hell I want. But as a Christian, we don't believe that we live once, you know? We believe that because Jesus died for our sins, because he cared about us, because he rose from the dead so that he showed us the example. He lived a life according to the law so that we don't have to live that we live under, his commandment, which is to love one another as he loved us, right? All that is in the Bible. I'm not making that up. To respect, right? To love and to follow his lead now that we don't have to live under the yoke of the Old Testament, those laws that Christians seem to be imposing on other people for whatever reason. Sure, there's things that you shouldn't eat, but if you eat of it, you're not damned. You just have to be healthy. Eat healthy. There's things that you should avoid eating. Leviticus 11, I believe, is it's full of like the foods that you can eat and can't eat. But at the time, that was law. That was like, if you did this, you were going to be punished. Now you're not going to be punished, but there's still like consequences of your health. Like if you eat a lot of pork, if you eat shrimp, like there's you basically expose yourself to certain things happening. You can have food illnesses and all that stuff. But it's not a sin to eat something that maybe is unhealthy for you, because people eat cake, people eat stuff that has certain things in it that aren't that great. But if you're healthy about the way that you go about your life, and you're healthy about your choices, your body's going to be healthy. It's going to reward you. If you feel bloated and if you feel overweight and you feel all that stuff, it's just because it's not because you're living in sin per se. It's just you have unhealthy habits. And I would dig into that. See what works for you. Try different things. Try different strategies of eating. I don't call them diets. I call them strategies, because that's what they are. You know what I mean? So, it's, for me, what I found works really well is eating all my calories between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. I eat all my calories that I need to eat, and I try to get myself into a calorie deficit to lose some weight, because I don't have a whole lot of time during the day to exercise, so I do eat a little less. If I exercise, I'll eat a little bit more that day. Typically 200 calories, added to my normal day to day. But I've been losing weight, dude. I mean, and really over the last year, I haven't gained, any weight at all. I've been staying normal, yet I look thinner because I'm eating healthier. I'm gaining muscle but losing fat in the same rate. So it's nice, and so just look at your life like that. It's like, okay, you want to eat a candy bar, that's fine, then just subtract that calories from what you can eat the rest of the day. So people just, they compound, they eat their emotions, or they're feeling a certain type of way. If I was you, just talk to somebody. If you don't feel like you have anybody, talk to me. You can get in touch with me however you'd like. I have email on there. I got Discord. That's one of the best ways to reach me on throughout this social media that I have here. But I hope you guys I wish you guys well. And I know that I'm not the best example, and I don't expect you to look at me that way, but I do want to be a positive example. That's my goal. And I hope that the content today provided I guess a little bit more wisdom for your life. Like I said, I kind of we talked about OnlyFans, and we talked about all these different things, and we talked about worldly desires, judgment and opinions, facts and emotions. Always make a decision based on facts. Don't make them on emotions. If you feel emotional, don't make a decision. Just wait till that storm passes, wait till that fog clears, and then make an actual decision. You don't want to make a decision when you're drunk, right? I recently saw some videos of drunk driving and the effects that it has on people. I've never had a drink, but I know people in my life that have, and that they've been really affected by it, and I love them because of their willingness to accept their faults and their bad habit and why they drink, and now they stopped. My dad's been sober for 14 years, and I'm really happy for him. But when I was a kid, it sucked. So but seeing him triumph and do what he does best, at his job, and now he's I mean, he's doing so well right now. He's working in an office, salary. And I know that's not always like the best thing, but where he is working, building ships, and people trust his opinion. And I'm doing the same thing on my end, kind of living in my dad's footsteps in a way, just a little sooner in life, but I'm watching and I'm learning and I'm being a student, and I'm constantly making sure that I'm not overstepping my own means, and making sure that I'm always trying to learn and not always trying to teach. You got to have a balance of both. And but anyways, I love you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I know these episodes are not very long, but I try not to make them too long. I don't want to be, my favorite podcast, Joe Rogan's, like 3 hours, but it's like, yeah, so I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. And I love y'all, and there's a lot better content to go watch. But I make this for those of you guys who are loyal to the channel, and I want you guys to be rewarded for that loyalty. So love y'all. Be sure, if you haven't checked out episodes 1 through 3, you should do that. And be sure to like the video again, comment below what you guys thought of today's content, and I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Take care.